Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Becomes a Pokemon Trainer. In this story, it is simply what you might expect. The story of My Hero Academia, but in world filled with not only quirks, but also Pokemon. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel, after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. After we escaped the shipwreck zone and froze all those villains, we could have just sneaked our way back to the entrance with the others. As the class rep, I should have done my duty to bring you and Serena back to safety, Izuku answered. Instead, I forced you all to come with me to where Mr. Aizawa was fighting the villains. I was so worried about Aizawa and whether he would be okay that I neglected you two's safety. And if we didn't win there, Shigaraki wouldn't have noticed you, and he wouldn't have tried to kill you. It was silent between the two for a few moments. Pikachu looked to his trainer sadly, always upset when his trainer places all the blame upon himself, regardless of his involvement. Eevee and Combuskin felt the same, the latter now feeling guilty for her outburst towards her trainer, after the villains fled. Izuku felt a hand on his own and looked up to see Asui placing her hand with his shoulder. It's true, Asui said. If we didn't go, we probably would have been safe, and it is true that you led us there, too. Before Izuku could look down in guilt, or his Pokemon cry out in disagreement, Asui continued, but you didn't force us to come with you, Midoriya. We went with you willingly, and if I knew what would have happened, I would do it again. Izuku gaped in shock at his blunt classmate. And what you forgot to mention is that if we didn't go there, then we wouldn't have gotten Mr. Aizawa or his Pokemon to safety, Asui said. There was even a chance that Mr. Aizawa would have died by the villains if we didn't get Shigaraki's attention. If not, All Might would have probably wasted time trying to protect Aizawa and the Pokemon, then fight the villain at his full strength. Izuku stared at Asui stunned. She's right, Izuku, Eevee said, Izuku looking towards his first partner. And if you weren't there, All Might could have been killed by Shigaraki without you to distract him. And even if you did lead them danger, so what? Pikachu questioned, joining in. You saved Asui from Shigaraki and fixed your mistake by sending them away with Aizawa. What good is pitying yourself about your mistakes going to do? Are they suddenly going to change the past? No, they won't. So take the lessons in them and don't let them hold you back. Izuku smiled gratefully at the two. Thanks guys. Izuku replied. I needed that. Suddenly, Izuku felt his lines starting to tug. Izuku quickly braced himself and started pulling back. I got one, Izuku exclaimed. Sweet. Pikachu cheered. Pull, boss. Pull. You can do it, Izuku. Eevee cheered him on too. Nice, Asui said. Keep a steady stance, draw it out and pull hard. Izuku attempted to follow his classmates' instructions, only for the wet ground beneath his feet to make him slip and fall. The Pokemon on the other end of the line broke free and fled back into the water. Aw man. Izuku sighed disappointed. That was close, Asui remarked. Yeah, I thought I had them, Izuku said, dejectedly. Don't beat yourself up, Midoriya. Asui continued, extending her hand for Izuku to take. No one's an expert on their first try. All we can do is try and try again. Izuku smiled at Asui and grabbed her hand. As Izuku got up, he said thank you Tsu. Izuku thanked his Froakie classmate for bringing me here. This is one of the best trips of my life. Asui's only reply was, you called me Tsu. Izuku chuckled nervously, rubbing his neck. Yeah, I did. Izuku chuckled. As the two chuckled, Eevee and Pikachu smiling at them, suddenly Asui's line started to tug as well. Hey, Tsu, you got one. Izuku pointed out excited. Erbit. Tsu croaked as she braced herself, standing firm and steady as the line tugged and struggled against her. With the cheers and encouragement from Izuku and his Pokemon in the background, Asui pulled with all her might, and a figure jumped out of the water. Izuku, Eevee, Pikachu, and a recovering Asui looked as the creature landed to their right, on his face. The Pokemon groggily got back up for the four to fully see it. Its body was a golden yellow, its body short and round, its arms a bit flabby and ended on three-fingered paws, a gold-yellow tail on its back, and cream-colored palemate for feet. Its beak was long, roundish, and cream-colored. 3 strands of black hair stuck out on top of its head, and its eyes were so wide and white, you could barely see the black dots for pupils. Sigh. Psyduck groaned, rubbing its head from the impact. Whoa, it's a Psyduck, Izuku exclaimed, eyes wide and shining. Izuku brought out its Pokédex and scanned the new Pokemon. Psyduck, the duck Pokemon. The Pokédex informed. Overwhelmed by enigmatic abilities, it suffers a constant headache. It sometimes uses mysterious powers. Wow, that's a good find, Izuku said, amazed. That's so cool. Right, Tsu. Tsu did not respond to Izuku, staring down the Psyduck facing her. The two stared at each other, Asui's blank white eyes staring into Psyduck's own white ones. Asui? Izuku questioned. Are you okay? It's Tsu, remember? Asui replied, staring at Izuku, adorable pink blushes on her cheeks. And I'm catching that adorable Psyduck. Upon her declaration, Asui pulled out a green Pokeball with black lines around it. A netball. Let's go, Palpitate, she called out. From the netball, Palpitate came out of its white light, standing at the ready against the Psyduck. Toad. Palpitate croaked out. The two Pokemon stared each other down, Psyduck tidling it side to side, while Palpitate smirked and hopped on its 2 feet in anticipation. Asui is using Palpitate to fight Psyduck. Izuku thought as he watched the two Pokemon stare each other down. Makes sense. Palpitate is her newest Pokemon, compared Politoed and Croagunk, so it needs the more experience, and Psyducks are known to have many Psychic-type moves, so Croagunk, a poison and fighting type, would be a bad matchup. Let's do this, Palpitate, Asui said encouragingly. Palpitate. The vibration Pokemon nodded in affirmation. Sigh. Psyduck cried out in fear, rubbing its head and eyes wide. But before any of them could make a move, a breeze ran through the two Pokemon, a shiver running down their spines. Izuku, Eevee and Pikachu, and Asui felt that breeze too, Asui croaking in discomfort at the cold gust. The 6 looked out to where the breeze came from and their eyes widened. Gusts of cold, transparent wind blew and circled around a spot on the water, almost shining, rippling at the very center. A melodic hum sang through that brought more shivers to the 4 amazed individuals. Suddenly, the water rippled lightly again, and a shape arose from the clear lake. The shape of the being was all they could see, its body nearly invisible, rising from the water so seamlessly and without much ripples, that it seemed intangible too, like a mirage. Izuku's amazed eyes squinted to make out the shape of the mysterious being. The shape was small, long shapes flowing down its top like dreadlocks, and what looked like 2 tails popping down the bottom of it. Wow! A melodic heavenly cry sounded out as the shape spread its body. And as quickly as it appeared, the shape vanished, the lake rippling a final time. Izuku, Asui, and their Pokemon stared in awe at what occurred in front of them. What was that? Pikachu exclaimed shocked. I don't know, Eevee replied. Toad. Palpitate croaked out amazed. Izuku could only gape in awe and surprise. His body felt like it was buzzing in energy, practically shaking, while his heart beat like a drum. The strange sensation went wild inside his head that it almost hurt. Izuku had to blink his eyes several times, unbeknownst to him that they were glowing slightly blue, as he saw a streak of flickering blue trail of smoke or something from where the shape was heading down into the lake before vanishing completely. Amazing. Asui croaked stunned. She perked up as she felt a shivering body press behind her legs. She looked down to see it was the Psyduck she fished up, hiding behind her legs and shivering in fright, its eyes frowned in fear. Oh, hey. Sigh. Psyduck, sigh. Psyduck flinched as it realized who was next to it and backed up a bit, rubbing its head in pain as it almost seemed to pulse. Asui blinked in realization. Oh, I see, she thought. Psyduck's fast psychic powers give it headaches, and when it is stressed and worried, they grow more painful. If he doesn't calm down, he could unleash his powers like a bomb. Asui reached her hand out to the Psyduck, who flinched and back up again. Sue stopped, before lowering down till she was near eye level with the duck Pokemon. She raised her hand again, but instead of reaching out to it, she held it up, like an offer. You don't have to worry, Ribbit. Asui assured the Pokemon calmly. I won't hurt you. Psyduck tilted its head again, confused, yet intrigued. Slowly, the duck Pokemon waddled closer to Tsuyu, placing one of its paws onto Asui's outstretched hand. Asui smiled and raised the other, slowly, and gently rubbed Psyduck's head, to the calming content of the duck Pokemon. Izuku smiled at the sight, seeing how Asui was soothing the Pokemon in discomfort with patience and care. It was inspiring and amazing to the green-haired teen, who started to feel something different. The green-haired teen couldn't place what it was but remembered recalling it whenever he had a heartfelt moments with Serena, Momo, and when Uraraka revealed her past and reasons for being a hero. Eevee walked up to the duck Pokemon, who regarded him with confusion. Eevee lifted one of his paws to it, which Psyduck hesitantly took. Instantly, Eevee's body glowed again, using Heal Pulse, which made the duck Pokemon sigh in contentment. After Eevee ended the move, Asui spoke again with I can tell that you have a lot of psychic power in you. Do you want to join my team? You can grow stronger and learn how to control your powers, and you can become friends with my Pokemon and me. What do you say? Psyduck blinked in surprise, looking down as if in contemplation. It then brought its head up and nodded. Psyduck. Sigh. Psyduck cried out, affirmatively. Asui smiled, digging into her backpack and bringing out another netball. With hesitation, Asui tapped the Pokeball onto Psyduck's head, and it was consumed in red light and sucked into the Pokeball. It shook 3 times in her hand before an audible clicking sound occurred. Psyduck's capture completed. Congratulations, Asui. Izuku said, enthusiastically. You caught Psyduck. Eevee and Pikachu congratulated Izuku's classmate too. Palpitate, while happy for his trainer, sighed, slightly disappointed it couldn't get to fight. Izuku held out his hand for Asui, pulling her back up to her feet. The two looked back to the lake, their Pokemon mimicking their trainers. But, what was that earlier? Izuku asked. I've never seen anything like it. Me neither. Asui croaked. In all my times visiting Lake Verity, that never happened. But it happened, I felt happy. Palpitate. Palpitate croaked, nodding and saying he felt the same. Yeah, same. Eevee said. I felt almost peaceful and calm. What about you, Pikachu? Me? I felt excited. Pikachu replied. Don't know why, but whatever that thing was just made me feel so pumped up. Hey, Combuskin, you felt that too? I did. Combuskin communicated telepathically. I felt similar to you, Pikachu. It was weird. What about you, Midoriya? Asui asked, after hearing the Pokemon talking by their names. What did you feel? Me? Izuku questioned. After a moment of thought, searching through what he felt when the mysterious shape appeared, he replied I'm not sure. For a moment, I felt this swell of anger. Anger? Asui croaked in question. Yeah, but then it just vanished, and then I felt sad, miserable even. Izuku continued, eyes narrowed, confused himself. And then, I felt joy and happiness, and amaze. Asui nodded hesitantly, unsure of what Midoriya was saying, but understanding enough. It was an amazing thing to see. Asui nodded. What did you think, Susuki? Susuki. After hearing no reply from her younger sister, Asui looked around to see her, only to find her gone. Susuki. Asui asked again, louder and more panicked. Izuku and the rest noticed too and started looking around for the little girl. Susuki. Asui called out a third time, worried and frightened. Eevee's ear perked up and looked in a direction. Izuku. Eevee cried out, pointing that direction. Izuku looked to where Eevee was pointing, squinting his eyes, before widening. Asui. Look. Izuku pointed. Asui looked, her eyes widening too at what she saw. Susuki, far away yet enough where they could make her out, was giggling and splashing water on a tiny little Pokemon. Upon closer inspection, they realized what that tiny little Pokemon was. A Wishiwashi. Oh no. Asui croaked. Susuki. Asui began hopping quickly towards her little sister, palpitate hopping onto her back before she leapt away. Shit. Pikachu, Eevee, let's go. Izuku cursed as he activated full cowling, and took off towards the little girl and emanate danger, Pikachu and Eevee taking off after him. A Wishiwashi. Here. Izuku thought as he ran. I thought they were only supposed to be by the coast and sea. What's one doing in Lake Verity? Doesn't matter. If Susuki angers it, it could transform and attack. We got to get there, fast. Full cowling 8%. Izuku increased his percentage of 1 for all and sped up faster. Susuki was giggling happily as she looked at the little Pokemon swimming before her. The Wishiwashi was small, about 7 inches in length. Its roundish head was mainly white, with a whimpering-like frown for a mouth and heavy dark blue eyelids over light blue eyes that looked like puddles of water. A line of white teardrop shapes went down each side of its body, separating its underbelly, underside gray in color with 2 tiny gray pectoral fins, and its top half, which was dark blue and had one upper, longer dorsal fin. Its tail was a curved white fin. It also sported a bluish mark on its nose. The Pokemon looked sad and confused, which made the curious girl go to it. When it noticed her, it became wary, almost fearful. Susuki tidaled her head, to which the Pokemon swam to meet her sight, and then swam to the other end when Susuki tidaled her head the other way. Susuki giggled and wanted to play with it. She cupped her hand into the lake and splashed some water onto it. It took it in stride, almost giggling, and sprayed a little stream of water onto Susuki, to her delight. They continued splashing and spraying water onto each other, until Susuki got carried away. Giggling, she slammed her hand into the water near the little Wishiwashi, startling it. It swam away from her and started glowing blue. Susuki blinked in surprise, watching as the little Pokemon glowed. She then noticed a similar glow a little ways to her right, then another to her left. Susuki looked around the lake to see the same blue light shining all over the lake. Then the light started to move rapidly towards the glowing Wishiwashi. Wishiwashi descended into the water, the blue lights meet and joining with the first. As they joined, the Wishiwashi became bigger and bigger and bigger. As the last blue light met the larger one, the light ceased, and then it burst out of the water. Susuki stared in curious awe at what the Wishiwashi became. It was easily more colossal and massive than before. Its body was oval-shaped with the large creature separated into 4 connected sections of different colors. At the end, it was dark blue, almost black. The tail was jutted out and wide, sticking out in 3 spikes, each spike shaped like a fish, and the end of the tail, where it met the body, a ring of blue circles surrounded it, and finally, 3 floating teardrop-like fish shapes hovered as the tail. The next section had a lighter, yet still dark blue, with another ring of blue circles around it, and 4 spikes sticking out from it, 2 on its underside and 2 of its upper side. The third section was lighter than the last, a large dorsal fin atop it, the tip of the fin lighter in color with 2 blue dots at the very tip. Another ring of blue circles surrounded it, with 2 darker fish-shaped recesses, on both sides, behind it. The last section was the head, its color the same as the dorsal fin tip. Its roundish head was opened up by the wide, large mouth, the cheeks drawn back and revealing constantly the inside of the mouth, full of blue dots, and the upper and lower lips of the mouth had 3 blue dots. In between, the head and the other section was its pectoral fins on each side, shaped like a fish as well, with 2 fins and tail, 3 blue dots on the fins, and 2 where it met the main body. The center of the eyes were 2 fishes with blue eyes, with dark blue recesses above it, a white collection of fins behind it, and 2 blue fish-like shapes jutting out from its top. The skull form of Wishiwashi roared out in anger. Susuki stared at the large Pokemon, frozen, while it opened its mouth, a swirl of water forming in its mouth. Before it fully completed and fired, Susuki heard Pikachu, Thunderbolt. A large bolt of yellow lightning struck the monstrous Pokemon. The monstrous Pokemon cried out in pain and reared back its head, the hydro pump firing off away from Susuki. Wishiwashi recovered and looked to where the bolt came from to see Pikachu fire an electro ball at it. The attack collided again, to Wishiwashi's pain, and roared in fury. Susuki watched, frozen still as Wishiwashi turned its massive body to face Pikachu, all the while its tail was swiping towards her. As Susuki noticed the tail coming for her, Deku picked up Susuki and jumped out of the way from the tail's path, destroying where Susuki was originally. "Susuki, are you okay?" Izuku asked, concerned. Susuki nodded dumbly, still in shock. "Good, that's good," Izuku said as he headed quickly towards where Asui and Palpatine landed. He stopped before her and dropped Susuki in her arms. "Susuki," Asui cried out worryingly. "Big sis," Susuki said. "Are you okay? Were you hurt?" Asui fired off in concern. Susuki hummed as she nodded. Izuku turned his attention back to the Wishiwashi facing him and Pikachu. Izuku looked between Pikachu and Eevee and Combuskin, recently released. "Combuskin, Eevee, take care and protect Susuki. Me and Pikachu will deal with the Wishiwashi," Izuku ordered. The 3 Pokemon acknowledged and nodded, Eevee and Combuskin running up to and blocking Susuki and Asui from the massive Pokemon, while Izuku and Pikachu stared down the leviathan of a Pokemon. It would roar once more as it fired another hydro pump. "Pikachu, dodge," Izuku yelled as he jumped back. Pikachu complied and jumped away as the massive blast of water collided to the ground. Now, Electro Ball, again. Pikachu, in midair, formed another ball of yellow electricity and hurled it at the Wishiwashi. Wishiwashi would respond by forming a water pulse and firing, the orb of water and lightning colliding and exploding in an explosion of steam. Asui turned her attention to the fight, seeing Izuku and Pikachu fight the behemoth, and croaked. She pulled out her 2 Pokeballs and tossed them up. "Polidid, Krogink," she yelled out, the respective Pokemon appearing from their bowls. "Polidid, you and Palpatine help Midoriya fight Wishiwashi. Krogink, you stay here and help protect Susuki." The 2 plus Palpatine nodded in affirmation. As they went to do their roles, Asui turned to Susuki. "Susuki, stay close to me and don't wander off again," she ordered firmly. "I'm sorry, big sis," Susuki whimpered, tears forming around her eyes. Asui softened her gaze and smiled. "It's alright, Susuki." Tsuyu spoke softly. "I don't blame you. Just stay close and let us protect you. That's what older siblings do." Susuki stared in awe of Tsuyu. She turned her gaze to Midoriya as he leapt up from Wishiwashi's aqua tail, seeing his determined face. Susuki smiled brightly. "Pikachu, Thunderbolt," Izuku ordered, the electric mouse Pokemon firing another bolt of lightning. Wishiwashi fired an ice beam, the 2 attacks contesting before cancelling each other out. Wishiwashi would form and fire another hydro pump at Pikachu. "Thunder Shield," Izuku commanded. Pikachu complied and started breakdancing on the ground, while yellow electricity formed around him in a swirling shield. The hydro pump collided with the Thunder Shield. The powerful water-type attack seemed to be contested, until the powerful attack starting pushing forward and breaking through the Thunder Shield, knocking Pikachu onto a tree. "Pikachu, you alright?" Izuku questioned. "Yeah, ow, that's smarts." Pikachu cringed in pain as he shook it off. He perked up and pointed. "Boss, look out." Izuku turned to see Wishiwashi coming at him to attack. Before the One for All user could respond, an ice beam and echoed voice came from the side and blasted Wishiwashi back. Izuku looked to see it was from Polidid and Palpatine. "Thanks you two," Izuku thanked. The 2 nodded back before turning to face the Leviathan again. Wishiwashi roared in anger before glowing blue and raising its head. Suddenly, the water of the lake rose and into a large wave that advanced towards him. "Shit, it's surf," Izuku cursed. "Everyone, jump. Eevee, protect the rest." Izuku and Pikachu jumped out of the way of the surf. Polidid quickly wrapped Palpatine by its tongue before jumping up into the air with bounce. As the surf was reaching the others, Asui preparing to jump away with Susuki, Eevee stood in front of them and cried out loudly, forming a large green bubble around them, and shielded them from the large wave as it flowed around them before dissipating. Wishiwashi grew more annoyed and glowed again, this time ethereal purple, and roared, dozens of purple glowing scales shooting out and firing at them. "It's scale shot," Izuku exclaimed. "Dodge and defend." Pikachu formed another thunder shield, the scale shots blasting uselessly on the shield of lightning. Palpitid's fists glowed white from brick break as it struck and destroyed the scale shots that came at him. Palpitid fired off several mud shots, likewise destroying the purple scales coming at him. As the scales came towards the Asui and Susuki, Krogunk and Eevee attacked, firing poison stings and swifts to block the attacks. All were destroyed, except for one that was rapidly sailing towards the two girls. Asui grabbed Susuki and turned her back, attempting to shield her sister. But before it could reach, Combuskin stepped in between, a shadow claw formed in her paw and thrusted. The claw of purple shadows struck the scale shot, it exploding in a small purple explosion. Asui looked up to see Combuskin saving them. "Thank you, Combuskin." Asui thanked, Combuskin nodding in response. As for Izuku, as the scales came towards him, Izuku quickly thought All Might Cinderace. Thinking back to one of his notebooks and the info on Cinderace, Izuku ran to his right, swerving and pivoting away from the scale's shots. As he jumped and rolled away from one, another came at him. Izuku quickly set his left foot back, sliding it to a solid stop before turning it to the left. His body responded in turn as he began to pivot. Izuku watched as the purple scale sailed away, mere inches front of him. Wishiwashi roared in anger and began to fire up another scale shot barrage. Out of nowhere, a horrible echoing croak sounded, large powerful sound waves slamming into Wishiwashi's back. It roared in pain before getting struck again, this time by a focus blast and bullet seed. It and the others turned to see where they came from, Asui smiling at the answer. "Dad, Mom, Samador," Suyu called out. Out on the boat, deeper into the lake, was Ganma, Beru, and Samador. Susumadid and Quaijasire floated beside the boat, while Lomber was beside Samador in the center. "Stay away from my daughters, you school of lightweights," Ganma yelled, clearly angry. By the angry tick mark over it, Wishiwashi did not take to the insult lightly. Another hydro pump formed in its large mouth and fired on the boat. "Quagsire, protect," Beru ordered. Quagsire jumped from the water and in the path of the hydro pump. Quagsire yelled out, forming a large green bubble. The hydro pump hit and was blocked by the protective shield. "Seismidid, well it's distracted focus blast," Ganma ordered. "Lomber, use bullet seed," Samador commanded. Seismidid brought up his hands from the water, cupping them to form a large sphere of blue energy, before chucking it at Wishiwashi. Lomber, meanwhile, simply opened its mouth and called out as magical seeds shot out and towards its target. Eevee and the rest took the initiative and fired onto Wishiwashi with a number of projectile attacks. As Wishiwashi was getting pummeled and tried counterattacking, Izuku growled. "We have to do something to end this," Izuku thought, before Ganma's words repeated in his mind. He stared at the body of Wishiwashi, recognizing the likely thousands of them forming it. School of lightweights. That's it. "Asui, I have an idea." Izuku turned to Asui. "What is it?" Suyu asked. "Wishiwashi's skull form is just made up of hundreds and hundreds of other Wishiwashis, all gathered together to make up that shape," Izuku replied. "But they are connected to each other to do this, and if we manage to cause a large enough force to blow a few away, then the whole skull form will collapse." Suyu finished Izuku's idea. "Then I'll catch the lead Wishiwashi before they can try and regroup," Izuku continued. "But finding the right one when they all look identical will be hard. I know what the first one was." Susuki spoke up, drawing the two's attention. "It's the one with the mark on its nose. We were playing, but I made it upset. I'm sorry." No, Susuki, it's alright." Izuku eased the girl. "That's incredibly helpful." Susuki brightened up at the praise. Izuku looked back to the Wishiwashi. "But now we need to make enough force to scatter them," Izuku thought, looking to his hand. One good punch at 100% should be enough, but Izuku thought back to the USJ, Shigaraki's words taunting him for using a maxed out punch on him, that could have killed him. He then thought back to him recklessly breaking his limbs against Bakugo at the battle training exercise, and at the USJ, how worried he made everyone, how helpless he was. "I have to find another way, I can't just be breaking my arms like a Pikachu carelessly using Voltadot." Izuku perked up, gasping as he found out what to do. "Pikachu, Asui," Izuku yelled, gaining Asui's and the Sparker's attention away from blasting Wishiwashi. "Asui, wrap your tongue around Pikachu and spin him around for a bit. Then toss him at Wishiwashi. Pikachu, when Asui sends you flying, use Volt Tackle and blast through Wishiwashi." "Ah, I get it," Pikachu smirked. "Little Jonah and the Wylord, take him out from within action. Sounds reckless and dangerous. I'm in." Asui nodded, getting up and wrapping her tongue around Pikachu. She then started to spin, her tongue swirling around with Pikachu with it, the Sparkrat exclaiming as he was spun. Izuku turned to Wishiwashi, facing to the right of him, and ran towards it. Izuku's body sparked in green bioelectricity. "I have to get it to face Asui and Pikachu," Izuku thought, recalling the aura sphere he formed at the USJ in Taishi's words. "Perhaps its gathered up power over the generations either boosted your own power or you tapped into the aura of the power instead of your own. I don't know what he meant, but if there's a chance I can use it, I have to take it." Izuku thought as he jumped up high, till he was almost above Wishiwashi. Izuku raised his left hand, humming and shaking as sparks gathered on it. His head felt on fire and his body shivering. I don't have to form it all. Izuku's hand and eyes glowed blue, a small flickering ball forming on his hand. That's enough to get his attention. Izuku felt his body heat up like it was on fire, his bioelectricity sparking wildly. I don't know what this power truly is. If it is one for all or something else, but the ball of energy grew, Izuku gritting his teeth. But what I know is that it's mine. A part of me. Embrace it, push it forward. Go beyond. Over here. Izuku yelled, firing the energy forward. The ball of aura collapsed, breaking apart, yet a force of energy still blasted out and slammed into Wishiwashi's head. The skull form of the Pokemon turned to the slowly falling teen and roared, its mouth preparing for an attack. Oh no. Izuku panicked. Suddenly a water pulse fired off from the forest and struck the Wishiwashi in one of its eyes. Izuku was surprised before realizing this was their chance. Do it. Now. Izuku yelled. Erbit. Special move. Asui croaked as he finally tossed Pikachu. Tornado tongue toss. This is a bad idea. Pikachu yelled as he rocketed towards Wishiwashi's open mouth. His body sparked and came alive in massive wild electricity. Volt tackle. The yellow, sparking rocket that was Pikachu slammed into Wishiwashi's mouth and blasted through the other side of it. Wishiwashi roared a choked yell of defiance until it glowed bright blue. Its blue form shivered and shook till it broke apart into a multitude of little blue lights, multiple Wishiwashis falling to the water. As Izuku fell, his darted to the multitude of Wishiwashis falling, trying to find the right one. His stopped and widened, spotting a squirming falling Wishiwashi with a blue mark on his head. There. Izuku mentally exclaimed. His right hand quickly grabbed the great ball in his pocket and quickly flung it at the Wishiwashi. It could only have time to widen its eyes before the ball struck it and was absorbed into the ball. Izuku smiled before realizing that he was still falling. Before he could angle himself, Polidid shot out a tongue and wrapped it around Izuku. The Pokemon reeled its head back, struggling. Izuku closed his eyes waiting for the impact, only to find none. Izuku opened his right eye, blinking to see he was a few inches off the ground, Polidid's tongue round his waist, the Pokemon stopping his fall. Polidid groaned as he let go and fell to his butt, Izuku landing in the ground with a soft thud. Shaking his head, Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks Polidid. Izuku thanked the Pokemon, said Pokemon tiredly saying its name and raising a thumbs up in response. Izuku's mind clinked as he remembered about the Wishiwashi, whirling his head back to the lake. By the edge of it, the great ball landed in the grass, shaking. Finally, with faded breath, it stopped shaking and clicked. Izuku smiled and raised his fist into the air. We did it. He roared. Suyu would croak and cheer while Susuki cheered as well. Eevee and Palpatid would cheer happily, while Combuskin, Croagunk, and Polidid sighed, relieved. Pikachu, floating on the lake and injured a bit after his volt tackle, smirked and raised a thumbs up. Pikachu would suddenly float off the water, Quagsire appearing from below and lifting the Pokemon off the water with his head, opening his large mouth to cheer. While Samador and Lombre cheered and danced in victory, Barry and Gamma sighed in relief that the threat was over. The two groups gathered together on the bay, the rest of the Asuis looking over the two girls, especially Susuki, the youngest. Izuku meanwhile would retrieve the now captured Wishiwashi in the Great Bowl, sighing once more that the threat was over. He would look up to see Quagsire coming to shore with Pikachu atop his head. Pikachu! Izuku exclaimed, grabbing and raising the electric mouse Pokemon into the air. You did it. Well, I would like to take all the credit at any time. It was all of us who did it, boss. Pikachu replied humbly. Though, yes, I, humbly, really freaking did it. Humble, my ass. Combuskin rolled her eyes. Izuku, the Overseer. Eevee pointed out. You were able to do it again. Does this mean you figured out what it was? After placing Pikachu on his shoulder, Izuku looked at his hand. No, I didn't. Izuku replied. He looked at it and saw that it wasn't broken. He experimented on it, flexing and moving it, only to find it only slightly buzzing and a tad numb, but ultimately alright. I was trying to form it, but it collapsed in my hand before I could fire it. I only fired some kind of force from it that alerted Wishiwashi, but that was about it. It could be why my hand only feels a little numb and not broken like before. That start. Izuku thought. Not much, but a start. Noticing Asui coming his way, Izuku turned to her. That was amazing, Asui. Izuku said. That special move of yours. I told you Asui. Asui repeated again. And the thanks should be to you, Midoriya. If it wasn't for your plan, it could have taken longer, and with possible injuries, for us to defeat the Wishiwashi. I guess. Izuku rubbed his head. Still, if you didn't had Polidid fired that water pulse to blind Wishiwashi, I probably would have been done for. Asui croaked, confused. I never had Polidid, or any of my Pokemon fire water pulse. Asui replied. She looked to her Pokemon beside her, the three answering her wordless question with shaking heads. Izuku blinked, surprised once more, and now more confused. But then who fired that water pulse? Izuku thought to himself. Wishiwashi was facing towards us, so bears, Ganmas, and Sameter's Pokemon could have struck its eye from behind it. Izuku looked to the woods. So, could it have come from the woods? But then, what fired it and saved me? Midoriya. Ganma's voice brought Izuku out from his thoughts. Thank you, again, for saving my daughter, and this time saving my youngest. We are again in your debt. Thank you Mr. Asui, I mean Ganma, but that's unnecessary. Izuku replied. Your daughters helped me as much as I helped them. Asui helped fling Pikachu faster at Wishiwashi, and Susuki helped me figure out which was the head Wishiwashi. They too deserve every bit of the credit. Ganma smiled, impressed and pleased. My thoughts exactly. Ganma said, turning to his eldest daughter, a hand on her shoulder. I am so very proud of you, Tsuyu, and the woman that you have and are becoming. Tsuyu's normally expressionless face was broken by slight tears and a smile. Thank you Dad. Asui responded, happily. Izuku would smile at the scene before noticing Susuki walking to him. He knelt down to come face to face with the toddler. Thank you for helping save me, Mr. Midoriya. Susuki thanked. It was no problem, Susuki. Izuku replied, with a kind smile. And please, just call me Izuku. Susuki smiled before looking at the great ball in his hand. Is the Wishiwashi in there? Susuki asked. Izuku lifted the great ball and looked at it. Yep, it was thanks to you that I managed to catch it. Izuku responded. So thank you too, Susuki. Susuki smiled and nodded, before turning sad once more. Thank you, though I really wanted to play with it more, and to apologize for scaring it. Susuki said, glumly. Izuku frowned and looked to the Pokeball, staring at it and the Pokemon within. With his decision made, Izuku would sigh and smile. He held the great ball up and towards Susuki, to her confusion. Here. Izuku said. It's yours, Susuki. The Asui family was shocked by Izuku's decision, especially Susuki. But Midoriya, it was your Pokeball that caught it, and Pikachu who defeated it. Asui reasoned. Don't you want Wishiwashi? It would be a powerful Pokemon to have. You're right, Asui. Izuku replied. Honestly, having a Wishiwashi would be a great addition to my team, but Izuku looked back up to Susuki. I wouldn't have caught the right one if not for Susuki. Plus, we did come on this trip so that Susuki could get her first Pokemon. I think Wishiwashi is the perfect choice for her. Susuki stared at Izuku with white eyes full of amazement. She turned to her parents and siblings who, while still shocked themselves, smiled and nodded to the littlest of them. With one last hesitant look, dissuaded by Midoriya's kind smile, Susuki smiled brightly and took the great ball in her hands, smiling as she looked at it. Seeing the smile of the girl, Izuku smiled warmly too. Strangely, when he handed the great ball over to the little girl, he could feel a small feeling in his chest seem to fade away, like the connection and bond he had with the captured Pokemon went away, and was passed to the youngest Asui. Whatever the case, seeing Susuki's smile still made the teen smile brightly. I have my first Pokemon. Susuki cheered, raising the ball to the air before hugging it. Thank you big bro Izuku. The Asui family would croak in delightful laughter as Izuku would blush red hot. The next day. After the events out on Lake Verity, the Asui family and Izuku felt that it was enough exploring and adventuring for the day and trip. The rest of that day would be spent with Asui introducing her family to Psyduck and Susuki healing and having fun with her new Wishiwashi. At night they would have a delightful dinner, some fun activities, and some final s'mores around the campfire, all the while a silly smile was plastered on Izuku's face. The next day, they spent the morning packing up and readying up to go home. Izuku packed the last of his stuff when Asui came up to him. We're almost done packing up. Asui said. Ready to go. Yep, just getting the last of my stuff packed. Izuku replied. I'm sorry that you came with us on this trip and you haven't gotten a new Pokemon of your own. Asui apologized. Hey, there's nothing to apologize, Tsu. Izuku waved off her unnecessary apology. I came on this trip to have a good and interesting time. Mission accomplished. Asui smiled. You're getting better at saying my name right, big bro Izuku. Asui teased. Izuku blushed red again. Practice makes perfect they say. Izuku replied. By the way, I just thought of something. Herbert. Asui said, curious. If I get to call you Tsu, then it only makes sense that you can call me Izuku. Izuku said. It seems only fair. Nope. Asui said immediately. Huh? Izuku questioned, surprised at her immediate rejection. Izuku is what Momo calls you. Asui reasoned. And Izu is Serena's name for you. Then there's Deku for Uraka, Izzy for Toru, and Midori for Mina. Even the guys call you differently, like Midoriya for Ida, Midabro for Kirishima, and Kaminari is calling you his Pikabro for often. I want my own nickname for you. Izuku blinked in surprise at the seriousness Asui took with just his name. After a moment of thought, Izuku snapped his fingers. I got it. Izuku exclaimed. How about Tsu? It's like what Serena calls me, without the I, and it sounds like Tsu. Tsu? Asui tried the name out. Her response was a bright smile, her head tilted adorably. I like it. Rupert. Izuku blushed fiery red. Cute. He exclaimed, thankfully for sure that it was in his mind. I gotta take down my tent. He exclaimed, not so quietly, and scurried over to his tent at light speeds. Asui watched him go with a giggling smile. Adorable, she thought. She felt someone beside her and looked to see it was her mother, Beru, likewise smiling at the scene she witnessed. So, how long before you tell him how you feel? Beru asked, bluntly. By the end of year, at most. Asui replied, unashamed. Maybe sooner if I can get the others girls to recognize their feelings too. You aren't intimidated or worried about sharing him? Beru asked further. No? Sue answered. The others deserve happiness too, and Midoriya, I believe, deserves all the love in the world. Plus, marriage laws about polyamory are looser nowadays, aren't they? Mostly in Japan, though I hear things are getting more loose in America too. Beru replied. Oh, and when the time comes, tell the boy he already has me and your father's blessing. And your sister and brothers if that big bro title they gave him is of any indication. He'll most likely still ask anyways. Sue said, to their chuckles. Just as long as you promise me at least one grandchild. Beru offered. Make that 3. Asui replied, the 2 women of the Asui family chuckle. Izuku fully set down his tent by the time Ganma reached him. It has been a pleasure to have you on our trip, Midoriya. Ganma said, raising his hand to shake. Izuku took it. The pleasure was all mine, sir. Izuku replied. Wait here, I'll go get your fishing rod. No, by all means, keep it. Ganma offered. Think of it as a reward for saving both my daughters, and for giving my youngest little tadpole her first Pokemon. And don't bother trying to deny it, because we'll likely spend all day fighting over it. Izuku sighed in defeat. Alright, deal. Izuku said. The 2 turned to see Asui and Bear chuckling about something, the burning sensation in his ears making Izuku believe it was about him. Ganma noticed and smirked, approving. Midoriya, he gained Izuku's attention again. Take care of my daughter. Me and Barry travel a lot because of our work, means we aren't home most of the time, the only thing I hate about my job really. Asui ended up taking care of Susuki and Samador, and because of that, she never really made friends of her own in middle school. So please, make her feel welcome and happy. Izuku frowned sadly, looking at Asui with a new light, admiring her for her level of dedication to her family, and sadness at what it cost her. Izuku looked at Ganma with a determined stare. I will. Izuku declared. Ganma sighed and smiled, feeling a great weight of his shoulders. Good. Ganma said. And thank you. Finishing up the packing and returning their Pokemon, all except for Pikachu on Izuku's shoulder and Seismidit and Quagsire hauling the boat, the group of 6 started making their way to their cars. Until suddenly, a figure jumped out of the shadows and blocked their path. The creature stood on all 4s, though mainly on its 2-toed, crouched, blue feet, leaning forward by his white 4-fingered hands. Its whole body was a light blue color, its torso roundish and its arms skinny. A dark blue stripe ran down the back to the 2 white bubbled nose of the creature's oval-shaped head, its mouth thin and long. Its eyes were large, protruding vertically from its head from their sheer size, the sclera of its eyes a bright yellow, with blacker irises and white pupils. Its most notably feature was the large mane of white bubbles, similar to the 2 on his nose, wrapping around its neck and covering most of its back. Froakie. Froakie croaked out. It's so cute and froggy. Susuki cooed happily. Asui dug up her Pokédex and scanned the new arrival. Froakie, the bubble frog Pokemon. The Pokédex scanned. It secretes flexible bubbles from its chest and back. The bubbles reduce the damage it would otherwise take when attacked. A very rare Pokemon. Asui croaked out. But why is it here and blocking our way? Izuku stared at the Pokemon in surprise, its eyes staring right at him and Pikachu. Upon staring at its large yellow eyes, the gears in Izuku's mind clicked. It was you. Izuku said, walking a step forwards, the Asui family's attention on him. It was you that was staring at me when we came and who followed us on our way to Lake Verity. It was also you that blinded Wishiwashi with the water pulse, wasn't it? Froakie relied with an affirmative nod. But why? Izuku asked. He didn't have to hear the Pokemon thoughts to immediately know his answer. Were you intrigued by me? Izuku asked. Froakie nodded again. Do you want to come with me? Another nod was Froakie's response. Izuku smiled, nodding. Before he could dig out a Pokeball, however, Froakie raised his white hand to him as if to say stop. Froakie. Froakie shook his head. He then pointed his paw towards Izuku on his shoulder. Froakie. Looking at Pikachu in back of Froakie, Izuku asked, you want to fight with Pikachu first? Froakie. Froakie croaked loudly and nodded, almost energetic. Izuku smiled, impressed, already admiring this Froakie spirit. Looking to Pikachu, Izuku asked, what do you say, buddy? Ready for another brawl? If Bubbles is asking for it, he's got it. Pikachu cried out excited, pounding his fists together. Izuku smirked and nodded. Pikachu jumped off his shoulder, and Froakie jumped back for more room between them. The Asui family stepped back and watched, Susuki and Samador cheering him on the loudest. Pikachu and Izuku stared at Froakie silently, the bubble frog Pokemon returning the favor. Just as a leaf fell to the ground, Froakie charged towards Pikachu. Pikachu, charge with quick attack. Izuku ordered. Pikachu's body glowed with a white light as it sped towards Froakie. Froakie would reply by forming a water pulse in his hands. Just as Pikachu was nearing it, Froakie launched the water pulse, but not on Pikachu but on the ground. As the water pulse collided with the ground, a small wave of water shot forwards, pushing Pikachu back. Smart Pokemon. Gamma nodded. Instead of trying to hit a fast-moving target, Froakie fired it where Pikachu would be, and had the resulting blast wave hit Pikachu instead. Froakie, still in the air, followed it attack up by firing a stream of bubble. Pikachu, Thunderbolt. Izuku commanded. Paikaku. Pikachu roared as it fired a large bolt of lightning towards the mid-air Froakie, blasting through the bubbles like nothing. Froakie took the blast of lightning, croaking in pain as he was blasted backwards. Direct hit. Sameter cheered. And a super effective one at that. Froakie then shook off the hit and landed in a crouch. This was surprise to both trainer, Pokemon, and watching audience. How's it still standing? Sameter questioned. Asui perked up as she looked at Froakie. She pointed to the bubble frog Pokemon and said look. Around Froakie, his scarf of frubbles expanded and grew nearly wrapping all around Froakie before they are seated. Froakie, while covered in a few scratches, smirked. Just like the Pokédex said, it used its frubbles to absorb some of the impact. Wow, it's so strong. Susuki said. Electro Ball, now. Izuku continued ordering. An Electro Ball formed on Pikachu's tail before it flung it at Froakie. Froakie replied by forming another water pulse, tossing it, and intercepting the Electro Ball as they exploded in a burst of smoke and steam. Pikachu waited to see Froakie clearly, only to be surprised at Froakie popping out of the smoke, glowing white from his own quick attack, and struck Pikachu with a white fist of pound. Pikachu get it back with Iron Tail. Izuku ordered quickly. Pikachu ducked another pound from Froakie and swung its metallic-powered tail at Froakie, blocking some of the damage with his crossed arms, yet still sent back. After landing, Froakie jumped towards the tree nearby and fired another stream of bubble. Pikachu dodged them, while Froakie jumped to another tree and fired again. This one struck Pikachu's back. The bubble frog jumped out of the way of another electro ball to another tree, and continued hopping around from tree to tree. He's using the trees and his hopping skills to evade Pikachu's attacks, and to try and hit Pikachu's blind spots. Izuku muttered as he stared at Froakie jumping around. Pikachu, track where Froakie will jump to. Pikachu nodded, he and Izuku looking as Froakie jumped rapidly from tree to tree, trying to find a pattern. As Froakie jumped to one tree, the two's eyes perked. Got it. Izuku and Pikachu both thought. Electro Ball. Pikachu complied with his trainer's wishes and tossed another Electro Ball at where Froakie was jumping towards. Froakie was already mid-jump before he realized, landing just as the Electro Ball hit the tree and him. Froakie croaked in pain as he fell off the tree. Now, quick attack and Iron Tail. Izuku ordered. Pikachu rushed and jumped towards the mid-air Froakie, colliding onto his chest, before swiftly spinning and slamming his Iron Tail onto the Froakie, slamming him into the ground. Just as Froakie bounced off the ground, Izuku ordered again one more time, Iron Tail. Pikachu spun in mid-air and hurled himself and his metallic tail onto the Froakie on his back. Froakie recovered just in time for both his fists to glow white from pound, and blocked the Iron Tail between them. Gotcha. Pikachu smirked. Froakie's eyes widened at his mistake. Pikachu was now right next to him. Izuku smirked. Pikachu, Thunderbolt, full voltage. Pikachu roared, yellow lightning exploding off of him and onto Froakie who croaked in pain. Alright, Pokeball, go. Izuku yelled as he tossed a netball at the downed Pokemon. Pikachu hopped off as the netball struck Froakie, opening up and consuming the Pokemon in red energy and into the Pokeball. Izuku and Pikachu waited with bated breath as the Pokeball shook. The Asuis leaned forwards and expectant. Izuku stared at the Pokeball, a bead of sweat down his brow. The Asui smiled wide, Susuki and Sameter cheering. Ribbit. Asui croaked joyously for Izuku and his new Pokemon. Pikachu smirked and pumped his fist. Eevee and Combusken came out of their Pokeballs, smiles on their faces at the new member of their family. Izuku smiled warmly, his thoughts racing back to where he and Eevee first met Pikachu, the times they spent together, and the day he finally caught him. It was in this place where I first met Pikachu and one of my closest friends. Izuku thought, walking towards the still Great Ball. And now today, more than 10 years later, Izuku bent down and picked up the Great Ball, holding it in his hand gently. Where I found and made a new friend. Izuku smiled wide. Sticking the ball into the air, Izuku cried out, alright. I caught a Froakie. Pikachu cheered. Eevee and Combusken joined in. Staring at the ball raised to the sky, Izuku could only smile brightly, a cold, yet calm shiver running down his spine. The same shiver he felt since capturing Pikachu and Combusken, when he first met Eevee. To Izuku, that shiver always meant, for him, a shiver of excitement and joy at a new member of his family. Later, Izuku, Pikachu, and Eevee waved goodbye to Asui and her mother, as they left him off at the doorstep to the Midoriya apartment. Izuku looked at the great ball still in his hands and smiled, excited to show his mother his new Pokemon and partner. Izuku and the two Pokemon walked to the door and opened it with the hidden key under the flower pot. "Hey mom, I'm home." Izuku announced his entry, Pikachu and Eevee calling out greetings too. Silence was what he was met with. Izuku frowned in confusion. "Mom," he called out again, walking closer to the house. "Izuku." Inko Midoriya suddenly rushed out of the kitchen, her clothes and hair slightly disheveled. Her red face was full of surprise and panic. "Oh, you're here. You're here early." "Yeah?" Izuku said, confused at his mother's panic. "I just came back. Are you okay, Mom?" "Oh hey young Midoriya." All Might, in his skinny form, suddenly appeared from the kitchen too, his black suit slightly wrinkled, and his own messed up even messier. "Welcome back." "Oh I mean Mr. Yagi," Izuku exclaimed, surprised to see his idol here. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, well you I see I was Toshinori tried to explain, panicking and stuttering. "He was just here to talk to me." Inko interjected quickly, trying to keep down her red face. "About a new job." "A new job?" Izuku raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah." Yagi took Inko's hint, that being a shoulder to the stomach. "I was just talking about seeing if she wanted a new job at UA. UA? Izuku blinked in surprise. "Yes." Inko squeaked out, nodding rapidly. "Yagi says that recovery girl could use some extra hands to help in the nurse's office, so he thought it would be a great idea." "Oh, okay." Izuku nodded. Normally, he would be ecstatic for his mom to get a new job, especially at UA, but he felt something was off still. "That sounds great." "Yes, well anyways, I think I should be going now," Toshinori said. "It was a pleasure conversing this topic with you, Inko." "Yes, a pleasure." Inko nodded, blushing. "Until later, Toshinori." Quickly, the hidden All Might excused himself and left. Inko excused herself, saying that she needed to use the bathroom for a minute. That left Izuku and his Pokemon, the two doing their best not to burst out laughing, while the former just stood there confused. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.